powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button and continue to help the station grow. It's game day, guys. Minnesota Vikings versus the Detroit Lions. It is game day, the showdown, the epic showdown at US Bank Stadium. Man, I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. We do have some concerns. Blake Cashman won't go today. But Aaron Jones is going to try to give it a go today, from what I hear. That will help bolster our offense. Man, I just got a few reasons why I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win this game today. I was at Paisley Park yesterday, first time I took in Prince's old digs out in Chanhassen, and I ran into some Detroit Lions fans that were there. They were in our group of the tour. They seemed pretty confident. But I'm going to tell you, man, I don't think they've faced anything like the Vikings all year. And here are some reasons why I think the Minnesota Vikings will beat the Detroit Lions today. Number one, Buffalo's defense. I think when you look at, they call their running back tandem Sonic and Knuckles. I think Sonic and Knuckles have not seen a front like the Minnesota Vikings defense, man. I've mentioned it in previous podcasts that the Minnesota Vikings defense, dude, is not scoutable. When they start bringing all these people up to the line, how do the Detroit Lions offensive line figure out how to block this defensive line? You have to be able to have those pre-snap reads. Think about that. Whenever you watch an NFL football game, you see the center pointing. They're trying to figure out who the mic is. In other words, middle linebacker. You'll see the center pointing all the time. He's kind of the captain of the ship when it comes to that offensive line. How do you figure that out when you got 8 to 9 people up there stunting, coming in and out? How do you figure out who to block? How does Jared Goff get a read on who's coming and who's not coming from snap to snap? And when you're a running back in the NFL, that pre-snap is important because you're trying to figure out, do you run through the A gap? Do you run through the B gap? Do you run through the C gap? The Detroit Lions are not going to be able to decipher that pre-snap. They're going to have to figure it out on the snap. Now, not unless Brian Flores and the Purple Haze, that's what they call in the Minnesota Vikings defense right now, the Purple Haze. Unless there are some tendencies that they are giving away on film to kind of show their hand about who's coming and who's not coming, the Detroit Lions don't have a chance in that department. So take away all of the pre-snap reads that the Detroit Lions are used to getting. That's going to handcuff that running back tandem that the Detroit Lions have. I'm not saying they can't be successful. I'm just saying that those pre-snap reads aren't going to be there. Number two, the US Bank Stadium crowd. The Detroit Lions have never seen a crowd that they are going to see today at any point in time this year. The US Bank Stadium crowd, Skoll Nation, there's not going to be a lot of blue in there. It's going to be that purple haze that we've been talking about. People are going to be skolling. Horns going to be blowing. And the Minnesota Vikings are going to start to get in that ass right away. It's going to be an incredible environment. And if the US Bank Stadium crowd does their job, again, that messes with your pre-snaps. You're not going to be able to hear. That 12th man is so important, and we're going to have that advantage today. That's another reason why I think the Detroit Lions are going to have a lot of trouble. Number three, the Detroit Lions arguably lost their best defensive player in Hutchinson. He had the most pressures out of anybody in the league this year. So now when you don't have that on your defensive line, you can't say that they haven't downgraded that with who they have to replace him with. You're not going to get the pressures that you are getting, which is going to give our guy, Sam Darnold, Schwarzenegger, time, give him more clean pockets. And you know when you give Sam Darnold clean pockets, he can hurt you. Where he's weak is when he's got a lot of pressure up in his face. He's got to make quick decisions. He's got to think on the run. They won't get as many pressures today without Hutchinson out there bolstering that defensive line. We never want anybody to get hurt. And by the way, his injury was just horrific. We don't want anybody to get hurt, but he's not going to be on the field today. That has to hurt the Detroit Lions in some capacity. You're going to be giving Sam Darnold clean pockets to look at. Next, Aaron Jones is going to give it a go. We just traded for Cam Akers to give our running back room a little bit of depth. Aaron Jones is going to give it a go today. It's going to help our running game. That brings in the play action pass for Sam Darnold, which is going to open things up for Addison and Justin Jefferson down the field. That's a huge component to our offense. I'm just hoping that Aaron Jones can stay relatively healthy throughout the game and finish the game. That's going to be the X factor. Because it didn't look well last time we saw him. He had his thigh wrapped up, has a hamstring injury, a glute injury, whatever it is. Specifically, the last time we saw him when he had that thing taped up, he didn't look too hot. But for all intents and purposes, the man has been looking great in practice, and he's going to give it a go. But you know how these things reoccur during games, especially when you're going live. So I'm hoping and praying that Aaron Jones can keep it together. Another reason why the Minnesota Vikings, I feel, going to win this game, KOC. KOC in the play calling on the offensive side of the ball, instituting that run game when it's healthy, time of possession. See the Detroit Lions, man. Their formula is our defense is going to give you hell on that side of the ball. And we're going to try to manufacture a lot of 1, 2, 3 and outs to give our guy Jared Goff more time on the field, more possessions to be able to score more points. It was the formula that they used with the lowly Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys fed right into it. And before you could blink, they were up by 30. They were up by 30. Ball control is going to be huge. Time of possession is going to be huge today. And I think KOC knows that. I know the Vikings are 1.5-point favorites. One of the few games that the Minnesota Vikings have been favored in any time, any point in this season. People are starting to see the light. But from what I hear, a lot of the money is going on the Detroit Lions. People nationally still aren't believing in the Minnesota Vikings. And I tell you right now, if the Minnesota Vikings win this game and they go 6-0, we're going to be Bonnie rating this thing all over the place. We're going to give them something to talk about, as Bonnie Raitt would say. You guys know that song. Let's give them something to talk about. We're going to give them something to talk about today. Look for the Minnesota Vikings to go 6-0 today. This is not fandom talking, of course. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. This is just straight analysis. The Detroit Lions are going to have a lot to deal with. They had a road game last week in Dallas. They had to come back home to Detroit. And now they have to travel into a hostile environment down in Minneapolis at U.S. Bank Stadium. For those of you that have never coached a sport at that level, where you have to travel like that, It gets to you. It's a real thing. Travel is a real thing. And the Vikings are just coming off a bye. Fully rested. Almost 100% fully loaded. We're going to see what happens today, man. I look for the Minnesota Vikings to get a victory and go to 6-0. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This has been Unconventional Playbook. We got our live show today. Myself and my guy, Mr. Patrick Buchanan, who will be here for the live show again starting at 5 p.m. Our usual time is 8 p.m. We're going to go a little bit early today. We know some of UP Nation got to get up and go to work tomorrow. So we're going to get on a little bit early, talk a little bit of Vikings football. Those of you, come on into our live show. Hit us with some comments and questions. We would love to interact with you guys. Again, man, this has been Unconventional Playbook. I love talking to UP Nation, Skoll Nation, Purple Nation. Continue to hit that like and subscribe button and support the channel. We will make sure to see you when we see you. Look, Trey, take us home.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am? I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man?